Hello guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan, and today we are going to be ranking the top 10 most surprising players so far at this year's World Juniors. Now, we've seen a bunch of players rise up and steal the show and be absolute stars in this tournament, but we've seen a lot of players that have come out of nowhere and have been fantastic for their respective teams. We've also seen some surprising players, guys that were supposed to be big-time players for their teams and have just not come up to snuff. But who do I see as the most surprising players so far in this tournament, and which players make my top 10 rankings? Watch till the end for all the World Junior content and hit that subscribe button if you're new. 70% of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed, so join the Grav gang and join us on the road to 28K subscribers. Everybody's appreciated, and every bit helps. Now, I do want to mention to start out that I am including surprising players that are surprising in a good way and also surprising players that are surprising in a bad way. So we get a little bit of a mix in this top 10. But we're going to start out today with the 10th most surprising player so far in the 2021 World Junior Championships. I have Vancouver Canucks 7th round pick back from 2019 and Team Sweden legend Arvid Kosmar. Now, Arvid Kosmar, I was pretty impressed with throughout this tournament. Only got 2 goals for 2 points in 5 games played, but I thought was one of Team Sweden's most effective players. He was mostly playing on the second and third line, wasn't getting top end minutes by any means, and was, I thought, a pretty good all-around player for them. A little bit of a Swiss Army knife, but especially in the last few games, I thought Kosmar was pretty great for Team Sweden all around. Sadly, it did not go their way in the tournament just in general, but I don't think that was Kosmar's fault at all. I thought he was really effective, especially in terms of play driving. I thought he had at least one of the most consistent tournaments of any of the Swedes there on that team, and I thought looked pretty good. Now, he's only played 16 games in the SHL this year, getting 1 goal for 1 point, so I'm not really sure where his future lies in the NHL, but this is a guy that just World Juniors wise definitely represented Sweden well and came up to play. He was fantastic and definitely not one of the reasons why they ended up losing to Finland in the first place. And now we're going to move on to the 9th most surprising player of the tournament, and we're going to go now to Canada's main guy in that main goaltender and starting goaltender for the entire tournament thus far for Team Canada, Devon Levi. Now, Devon Levi was a 7th round pick in this past 2020 draft by the Florida Panthers. Last year, played in the CCHL for the Carlson Place Canadiens, and in 37 games, got a .941 save percentage. But going into this year, I didn't exactly expect him to be, 1, on Team Canada, 2, be Team Canada starter, and do as well as he has. Now, in 5 games played for Canada, he's had a 0.64 goals against average and a .967 save percentage. They still haven't gone against any of the big nations like the US or Russia, but I do still think that that's pretty worthy of being credited because Levi has been fantastic for Canada. Even especially in this past game versus the Czech Republic, I thought was super effective for them. Was a guy that might have been their best player on the ice at that point too, was making some really solid stops and was keeping Canada in the win column, which is obviously the most important thing. But with Levi, he's one of the most interesting stories of the World Juniors, a guy who was playing in the CCHL last year, Junior A, and even though he was playing fantastic, was just a 7th round pick, and out of nowhere, comes in, becomes Canada's starter. We're now going to go to the 8th most surprising player of this year's World Juniors, and now we're going to go to the first surprising player on the bad side of things. And I don't think this player was necessarily bad. It was just the performance at the end and just overall throughout this tournament so far has not been to what I expected he would be on the roster. That being Ottawa Senators' 2nd round pick, Robbie Järventie. Now, the sad thing is with Robbie Järventie, I for the most part, he's been playing on the 3rd line, 4th line minutes, not the most, and I'm really surprised why, because even though Järventie hasn't been great when he's played, I do think he's a guy that does deserve a top 6 spot, but he hasn't gotten the most ice time, which I think we do need to talk about, but in 5 games played, he has 0 goals, 0 assists for 0 points, and has just not been good. He's not been good, and I really thought that this year, especially on the forward group, especially on the power play, Järventie would have had a bigger and brighter spot on that Finland team, but they've been getting by without him. Guys like Anton Lundell have been leading that team as well, but Järventie's kind of on the sidelines while Finland is winning games versus Sweden, which I wouldn't have expected. I thought if Finland was going to go far in this tournament, Järventie was going to be a pretty big part of that, and so far he's been a pretty big non-factor. But we're now going to go to a surprising player on the good side of things. We're still going to stick with Team Finland, but we're going to go now to Team Finland's starter in goal in Kari Piiroinen. Now, Piiroinen has been really solid just in general this year, but in the World Juniors for Team Finland has played 4 games, getting a 2.01 goals against average and a .918 save percentage. Now, in the missed this year as well, in 14 games played, he's gotten a .924 save percentage, which for a 19-year-old is pretty impressive. Now, Piiroinen was a 2019 draft eligible for the first time around. He played in the OHL for the Windsor Spitfires and 875 save percentage. The next year would have the exact same save percentage in 30 games, and at that point, I don't think was worthy of a draft pick, but he's come back to Finland, has been fantastic, and so far for the World Junior team has been a big MVP for them, and has been great. I mean, you could look in that Sweden game, how impactful he was there too, and I think Piiroinen has really just come into his own as the starter for the Finns as well. We're going to go on to number 6, and we're now going to go into the next player here. This is going to be a player in the surprisingly bad category. And points-wise, he's not doing too badly, but performance, I think, is a big thing, and so far, especially compared to basically almost every single Canada forward, I think he's kind of been, especially inconsistent, but just not that great in general. That being Buffalo Sabres top 10 pick, Jack Quinn. Now, so far in 5 games played, points-wise, again, he's not too bad. 1 goal, 3 assists for 4 points, but when you watch Team Canada, he's definitely one of the least impactful forwards out there. I mean, if I look at the 4th line, I think Tomasino's been better, Mercer's been better. Even at some points, I think Ryan Suzuki has been better than Jack Quinn. And in the first couple of games, I was giving some excuses like, I think Jack Quinn's going to be all right. He'll eventually get over this. And even I wasn't the biggest fan of Jack Quinn. I had him at like just outside my top 15, I believe. And I thought the pick by the Sabres was pretty wasteful with Rossi and Perfetti on the board. And so far, he's not exactly giving us any reason to doubt that. Now, I do want to say again that with a lot of the OHL players, they haven't played for a long time, but you can see guys like Quinton Byfield coming back around and starting to finally play well. And meanwhile, for Jack Quinn, I think he's getting worse and worse almost, which is kind of hard to believe. He's still been in this tournament. I don't think he's been terrible, but compared to a lot of what Canada has offered in this tournament, he's been very disappointing. I thought Jack Quinn, especially what we saw of the lines early on, could be a guy placed in the first line, could be on the first power play, and could be a reliable goal scorer for Canada. It was looking like that was going to be his role for this year, but sadly that's just not come to fruition, in Canada so far has made other decisions, and I think it is deserved. Jack Quinn has just not been that great, and if he continues that, I think could be scratched possibly pretty soon. But now we're going to go on to the 5th most surprising player of this tournament. And we're going to go to another player that's surprising in the bad way. But I do want to say this, that he was likely injured for a couple of games at least here. And we'll see maybe after the tournament what his status is. But just in general, even though I'm not the biggest fan of this guy, he was still pretty disappointing for me. That being Philip Broberg of the Edmonton Oilers. Now, I do want to say this, and again, he probably was a little bit banged up in those last couple of games, but even at the start, I didn't think that Broberg was that fantastic. Obviously, that first game was good where he got 3 points and he was solid there, but especially as the tournament went by, and even in that first game, I thought Victor Soderstrom was the more impactful player all around, and I think especially throughout that tournament, he started to get more ice time, started to get more responsibility, and it was deserved as well, with Philip Broberg just not playing that consistent, not being that impactful consistently on a period-to-period basis. He had some good periods here and there, but for a guy that was a 2019 draftee, a guy that had his last World Juniors this year, definitely disappointing route for him, and of course Team Sweden in this tournament as well. I don't think he'll be happy with that, and even if he is injured, I don't think he'll be happy either. Just not the greatest tournament for him. Hoping for bigger things next time around, but for Philip Broberg, definitely not what they would have wanted, and especially for Team Sweden's captain, not as productive as I personally would have wanted either. But we're now going to go on to the 4th most surprising player of the tournament, and we're going to go on to another player, and actually the last player in the bad category in this list. And I do want to say that, again, there is some caution here, because I still love this player, I still love this prospect, but even though we all had almost no help, I still don't think he was that great in this tournament, that being Marco Rossi of Team Austria. Now, again, I do want to say, from Rossi especially, I'm not putting a ton of stock into what happened in this year's World Juniors, but considering the circumstances, I definitely think he could have been a lot better. Now, people will say he had no teammates and no help. I disagree. Senna Peters was really good throughout that tournament and was really solid for Austria, much more consistent offensively than Marco Rossi, I thought. And you had guys like Marco Kasper, who are looking pretty decent for the 2022 draft, who I thought also had a pretty solid tournament offensively. Marco Rossi, I do want to say, was still on his game defensively and still was solid in his own end. But offensively, in terms of line rushing, I'm just not sure what the plan was for him there, because it didn't seem like he was trying at all to do that anyways. Obviously, he got 0 points in 4 games played, which is sad to see, but even though I wouldn't put much stock into it, I still think he could have had a better World Juniors, and still, from what we saw, was a little bit disappointing for me. I think he will totally be alright, do not worry, and for Minnesota Wild fans, it's just 4 games in the tournament, it's all right. But I do think Marco Rossi, a better effort could have been put out there offensively, but it is what it is, and it's not like Team Austria would have won a game if Marco Rossi was elite offensively. They still would have lost all 4 and still would have gotten outshot like 2020. So yeah, I think it didn't really matter too much in the end, and for Marco Rossi in the end, for his amazing, hopefully, NHL career, it won't matter too much either. But we're now going to go on to the third most surprising player, and we're now going to get into the good players, surprisingly, in this list. And this is a guy that's from the 2020 draft, ended up being a 6th round pick by the Detroit Red Wings. And at the time, I think the pick did have potential, but I would not expect him to be as good as he has been. And honestly, I might think that he could, besides maybe Lucas Raymond, I thought he was Sweden's most consistent forward, that being the 6'8" legend, Elmer Soderblom. Now, I've talked about him a lot on the streams in the past, but I want to give some credit where it's due to the absolute madman. He had an amazing tournament and was just great for Team Sweden. Now, obviously, you'll see the 2 between the leg goals and see those highlights and think he's automatically amazing offensively, but he was doing a lot besides that I think was very impactful and very positive for the Swedes. Now, in his tournament in general, he ended up playing 5 games, getting 2 goals, 1 assist for 3 points. And I think Soderblom was just fantastic. I mean, for a 6'8" guy, he really worked on his speed, it seemed like, and his skating overall, which is a great asset to his game. And he used that beautifully throughout the tournaments. Was great in terms of play driving, especially in the corners, grinding play out. His skating and his speed as a 6'8" player really kind of separated him from a lot of the players he was going up against. And I thought, especially on the power play, was super impactful. Even strength offensively had a lot to offer. And really catch too much of his defensive play, but on the offensive side of things, in terms of driving play and being a positive impact for Sweden, he was definitely one of the best forwards out there. And honestly, I could not be happier. It looks like Soderblom might be a pretty decent steal for the Red Wings if he continues to have this type of progression. If he plays the way he did in this year's World Juniors and continues to put that type of style out there, I could see Soderblom as kind of like a perfect third-line player on an NHL team that can grind play out. But we're now going to go on to the second most surprising player of the tournament. And we're now going to go to a guy that a lot of people have asked me about, and he's surprising for me as well. I mean, I didn't really have him on much of my radar going into this tournament, but he's been very, very solid. That being Team Germany first-line player, Florian Elias. Now, Elias has been great throughout this tournament, and it's sad to see the Germans lose so early, but it really wasn't because of that first line. That first line of Stützle, Peterka, and Elias was just fantastic, but you had Elias as the center there, you had Stützle and Peterka as the wings, and Elias was great. I mean, just in terms of in face-offs, I thought defensively he was pretty solid, but also line driving. I think he was definitely the least impactful out of Stützle and Peterka, and him, of course, in that first line, but he was still pretty good, and tournament-wise, in 5 games played, actually, got 4 goals, 5 assists for 9 points. I mean, that's nothing to scoff at, especially when you're playing on Team Germany. And even though he was on that first line, he was surrounded by amazing talent there, I still think he rose to the occasion. It was great for Germany. And now we can officially get into the best and most surprising player of this year's World Junior Championships. And I don't know if it was ever in doubt, to be honest, but this guy was an absolute beaut. Sadly, had to play on the worst team in the tournament, but the guy was an absolute mad lad. We're now going to go on to Team Austria's starter, Sebastian Ranischitz. Now, Ranischitz was just incredible. He only played 3 games for Austria, but got an 892 save percentage. And you might look at that and say, oh, it's not that great. You are wrong. You are an absolute travesty of a human being. You thinking that Ranishins isn't amazing. I'm sorry. It's a bad life for you to be living. That you think Ranishins is not elite. I'm just so sorry for you, because it is a fact. It is a truth. But with Ranishins, all just aside, he was brilliant. I mean, he kind of came out of literally thin air. He was a 2020 draft eligible, mainly played in like the J20 Super Elite League, got an 885 save percentage, which is not good at all for a draft year. This year has been playing in the IIHF, having a 909 in 6 games played, which is all right, but it's nothing insane. But he was Team Austria starter, came out, became fantastic, played against Sweden, the US, and the Czech Republic, which is not easy to do, by the way, and put out some fantastic performances. I mean, being able to come out from those 3 teams and finish with an 892 save percentage with the defense that Team Austria had, it's extraordinary. I mean, Team Austria was also losing some defensemen like Timo Nickel, who would have been a pretty great out on that defense. He wasn't there, so that defense was basically left wide open with almost nobody really to salvage it. And here came Ranishins, who kept Austria alive for a lot of the games he played. And it's just sad that he had to go in for some absolute blowouts and get outshot like 50-10 or whatever it was, especially in that USA game. Ranishins was fantastic and just could not get another goal on the other side. It was just not happening whatsoever. But I just want to give a big thank you to Ranishins for just being absolutely fantastic, coming out of nowhere and being an absolute GOAT, because, hey, we discovered one new GOAT species in this earth, and Sebastian Ranishins is what it'll be called. My goodness, what an absolute mad lad, and for Team Latvia, definitely their MVP. But that'll be it for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I guess I could also give an honorable mention to Simon Lakoski on the Team Slovakia team. He was fantastic throughout this tournament too. So that's who I give an honorable mention to, surprising-wise. But thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell for more Prospect and World Junior content all year round. Make sure you comment down below what you agree and disagree with, and who do you see as the most surprising players in this year's World Juniors. Make sure you share this video with your friends. Get the surprising players out there, boys, and click on this card for online World Junior content right in one playlist. A bunch of videos there for you to watch if you haven't already. All right there. So thanks so much for watching. My name is Nathan. I will see you in the next stream or video. Absolutely appreciate you sticking around. And if you are here at the end, make sure you put Ranishins is GOAT in the comments down below as well. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.